All right, what's going on? It's been a while. Hope you've been all right. This production video, we're going to talk about cleaning up an old break, like an old school vinyl sample, something like that. A dirty, crusty thing you would then take and then enhance to give it a modern, a clean, a punchy, any other adjective you would like to apply sound. That's what we're going to do in this video. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, stick around. Hopefully I'll make it quick. All right. So here we are into the DAW Studio One as usual. What we're going to do is take this break right here, the New Day break. Sounds like. Then we're going to clean it up, make it sound like this. So the before, the after, you can kind of hear the difference. Like the before, it's slow. It's kind of very choppy in the way it was cut. I just found this on the internet. I might have sampled it differently myself. You know what I mean? But all the hits are there. They're very clean. They're very tight. It's got a lot of room to be worked on. Okay. So basically the process we're going to go through is taking the break, importing into the DAW. Obvious, it was already there. At this step, you'll choose to either kind of work in audio or maybe like a slicer. I put it in a slicer. I'll show you how. Take each individual hit, work that a little bit. You're going to shape the sound using the envelope. Take a lot of the air and the room out of it. I can add that back in later, but we just really want tight, punchy, clean hits. Then we're going to EQ it to first get rid of like weird frequencies in the super low end, any kind of peaks or artifacts we don't want. Then we'll take another EQ to shape for sound. And then past that is just kind of processing to taste with like saturation or heavier distortion or some compression limiting, whatever, reverb. There's plenty of that. Basically, we want to take this raw sound and we want to turn it into something that works in modern drum and bass. Easy enough. It can be simple. It can be difficult. It can be a couple steps here and there. It can be meticulous. It's all about what you want and the sound you're going for. When I'm showing you this kind of overview on how to do this, know that some things take a more heavier handed approach. Some things just work when you speed it up, pitch it up, stick a limiter on it. You know what I mean? But consider all these techniques when you're looking to clean up your own breaks. Enough yapping. Let's give it a shot. Remember, we have this clean break or the original sample. Now you can see under it, the one I worked, I put it in a slicer. So this is sample one. Each hit is a slice. That just, gives me some control. So now if I play it, you can see each hit get hit. Nice. Now you can do this a different way. You can slice it to audio, keep it on the timeline and arrange and work it that way. I just felt like slicing. Sometimes I do it the other way. Sometimes I do it this way. So the first thing you can do to really enhance the sound is to affect the envelope, which is the shape of the sound. If I turn the envelope shaper off, we get this. You get a lot of air. You get a lot of the room sound in the break. I turn it on and it sounds like this. Much tighter. How did I do that? I went down to this amp section and basically I took the decay all the way down. If I have all this up, we'll see what it does. Take the sustain down. Take the decay down. Just the transients, too much. Really tight. And that's usable, okay? So all we did was shape each hit. So what it's doing is going through basically each slice, it's taking all the air out, okay? You could do the same thing with like a transient shaper, even a gate probably. Second, I did not pitch this one up or down, but you can. This is at like its normal pitch. But if I want to pitch it up, I might do something like that for like a fill or like an intro break and then like bring it back down. Go lower. I kept it normal. So sometimes when we're working at drum and bass tempos, 174, 87, whatever, it's 174. Argue with me if you want. And around that. Sometimes it's better to slice the drums instead of pitching up the whole loop. Because you pitch up the whole loop, you get the higher pitch sound. And if you already have like a deep set of drums or like a set of drums with like a lot of like body to them, pitching it up can help give you that tight sound and can keep it within the range that's still punchy and not like ticky. You know what I mean? It still has body, still has shape to it. But if you slice the samples, then you're basically playing them in time but faster. You know what I mean? You're not shortening the time. The samples are the same length. You're just playing them faster instead of speeding up or slowing them down in the time domain. So it again, it's preference. It depends on the sound you're going for. I probably tried pitching up the whole loop. It just didn't work as well because I wanted like the chunky, like sort of low tone drums that it already has instead of pitching up like I just showed you. But sometimes pitching it up, making it faster, helps it cut through a bit more, helps like it sit on top of very deep bass, all kinds of things. You know what I mean? But again, think about these things as you're working on it because it sort of can dictate what happens next. Be it the track you're working on, the samples you use around it, all these things. Think about it. All right, back to it. Honestly, the break is in a really good spot already. This one didn't take that much work. So now we're going to go to the mixer track. First thing I did, add some saturation through Little Radiator by Sound Toys. So off, it sounds like this. On, it sounds like this. It does push the sound a bit, as in, kind of crunching it is giving that like hot preamp sound. I'm gonna open this up so you can see what does it sound like and what does it visually look like what's it doing. I'm seeing a lot of wild transients. Turn on Little Radiator, what do we get? So it's really beefed up the sound. It's really saturating it. It's pushing it hard. It's compressing through that saturation. So the transients are getting cut off. It's really focusing the sound, making it fat. It's enhancing the low end, sort of taking off a little bit of the highs, giving it that sort of brittle, pushed sound, but not tearing it apart. If we go back in and I turn it up, way too much. Not doing much. Cool. Now we're going to go EQ. And I already did this, so I'm just kind of showing you the steps I took. So without EQ, with EQ, taking out little peaks and kind of harmonic things that are happening. I'll solo some in a bit. And off. And on. So you can hear it kind of opens up. The cloudy sort of mid-range sound goes away. I'm taking away some of the low end, the really deep stuff, sort of rolling off. And because that's getting out of there, like the other stuff is enhanced. I have a dynamic EQ on the snare frequency. Just kind of taming it, sort of like compressing, multi-band compression in a bit. I have a little dip at 123. Just to take away some of that. What's this at 2,300-ish? There's like a airy kind of frequency here. Like it's not as prominent here, but when there's more processing on it later, as like the full drum bus, those frequencies that are sort of hidden start to come out in the mix a bit. And then just sort of taming the highs up here, dynamic EQ. But yeah, no EQ, some EQ. So remember we talked about a little bit of processing, tightening the sound. This is the EQ to sort of clean it up. And now we're going to go over to passive EQ, which shapes the sound a bit. So in this case, I'm going to play with it off and then on once again. Off. Now on. Not too much of a difference. Most of it is just giving it a bit more lower end in a 68 hertz range, which like a lot of times kicks aren't going that deep, especially in drum and bass. But because I'm kind of boosting it at this level, which is so much lower, the higher frequencies get a bit more higher, as in like around 180, where you're getting the more chestier part of the kick is being enhanced as well with this like moderate bell-shaped curve. If I push it too hard, you'll hear what it's really doing. If I take it off, remember it's subtleties. Pushing too hard. Off. It's just sort of rounding out the really low end. And for me, I like that. All right, next. Now we got sibilants. So like the S sound, the cymbal sound, gotta tame that. It's a bit crunchy. So without and with. Here you go. Without. And with. Here's what it's doing. So it's getting rid of basically the harsh transients, the harsh like sizzle cymbal sounds. It's taking that out. Off. On. Remember, it's subtle. I'm doing a bit more later on at the bus level, but nothing we need to worry about right now. And then one more EQ, because there's this wild frequency that I was going to point out in that first EQ. The sibilants took it away a little bit, but then this is really kind of taming it. So without, with. Yeah, that'll kill your ears. And just a little dip at 123. Now you might see this kind of area down here, the really low stuff. I know I clean that up later on. So that's basically cleaning up the break to a usable level for me. I do a lot more processing, which we'll get into. Subtle processing to get a bit more shape, to fit it with extra sounds or within the mix. But as far as taking a loose break, more or less, and making it usable, that is the steps. I'm just trying to enhance what's there. I'm trying to reveal the character that I can hear within it, the potential. You know what I mean? We started off with very clean sounds, clean hits, and then we just made sure to bring that out. I used the envelope shaper to take a lot of the air and the extra kind of noise out of it, so you just get the clean hits. A bit of EQ to shape the sound, get rid of some peaks, some weird frequencies to tame like the snare with dynamic EQ. Then a little radiator, just push this really compressed, saturated, push the sound to give it more of a cohesive feeling, a gluing effect, if you will. And more EQ to shape, give it some character. Yeah, that's kind of bog standard it. Like, because then you'll start working on the tune. Maybe you'll add some more samples. You'll have other instruments to consider and make mixed choices around. But you don't know that stuff till you get to it. You know what I mean? So this is basically it. But I'm going to show you a couple more things. And then we're out of here. So I got to this point. I made a bunch of little different patterns and stuff just to keep playing the break. But eventually I bounced it to audio. So now you have New Day Break done. So this is, well, what you just heard basically, but. Nice and clean, really usable. By the way, this, I didn't mention it ahead of time, but like this break I made for like that milk bone edit I did last year, 2024. It's 2025 now, unless you're watching this sometime in the future. Just kind of did it for this track idea. I think I'm going to steal this break and then make like an original tune out of it sometime after making this video. Now that we have the break, I started to make some mix choices based off what else was going on. So this is a full tune. Now we have an EQ, which is doing absolutely nothing. So I'm going to skip that. I probably put it on there as a placeholder to do something. But I am using Soothe, the next plugin, just to soften the tops. All right. So I'm going to play it with, and then I'll play it without. Okay. Without. Now with. Very subtle, but the top feels less sharp, less kind of, it feels smoother to me. That's a way to say less sharp. Come on, Duncan, get it together. So it feels smoother. It feels more in line with the mix that it fits in and texturally how I want it to be. I don't want it to be super sharp and again, digital. I started with like the preset that is in Soothe itself and then tweaked it a little bit, okay? If we play the delta, which is the difference between wet and dry, you can hear what it's taken out. So let's listen. So it's affecting these top frequencies, which is where a lot of the sharpness and the harshness comes from. If I go too far, yeah, off, sharp, smooth. It's very subtle, but when you're listening to this for a long time, you realize how much less fatigue there is happening in your ears when you do something like this. This isn't always necessary, but for this break, it was. On EQ, this is balance. Just take a smidge out of the mids. Again, it just depended on like what else was happening. But yeah, that's the break. If I play it with some other parts, it should make a bit more sense. So I'll play with the bass line. That's kind of all it takes. And as you know, the golden rule goes, start with a good sound, you'll end with a good sound. You can't polish a turd. If this break was much worse and I needed to go like surgical on it for, you know, take your imagination where you will, it might have rendered a different outcome. But because this one was so easy to just kind of enhance what was there, it just pulled it off. You know what I mean? I could go a step further to layer samples for the snare, or maybe layer a different kick, enhance some of the rides, add some, you know. But for the most part, I kept this break pretty clean, just as is, and I added some other bits. I'll show you just for context of how it works in the track, but I'm not going to go into like the actual layering and stuff, and just because I've done that in past videos and you can figure that out for yourselves. That's the fun part, all right? But I'll show you how I fit this into the context of this edit, and then I'm out. Hope this helped. Hope this continues to help. Let me know in the comments what you feel. And yeah. So if we look at this arrangement fully, you can see that it's not just the break. We have some extra percussion, like shakers and stuff, ride hits. Funky drummer makes its way in there for some shuffle. Impeach the president break for some layers. Let me show you what it sounds like. Skip ahead. Yeah, pretty simple. Basically, all I did was layer some stuff for the snare. So we got this sound. Gives it just a little bit of extra character, a little extra something to, you know, spice it up. You have this snare, came from Mad Flavors. So snare clap kind of thing, a little extra high-end snap. And the break for some extra shuffle stuff, some wide kind of ear candy, air, reverb-ish type stuff. And one of my favorite parts is this Impeach the Prez feel. So I use the Impeach the Prez break in the intro. Also, this is the break just in halftime. It's a bit chunky. Still cleaned up the same way. But when you add this little Impeach the Prez crash, you get this. And I just have that running occasionally. It's cool. When it's running the full loop, you just feel as if it's all the same sound, right? Hope so. Then later in this section, a bit more shuffle, a bit more character with the funky drummer. Tambourine break. Some rides. Shuffle deal. All this stuff is easy, but what it contributes is to this full sound. So that's it. That's how I picked the break, sort of, how I processed the break, how I further processed the break within the mix, how I added some layers and some different things for character, and to give it a bit more dimension than the singular break itself. And then all the stuff it fit around, but I'm not going to really do a track breakdown on this. I think I might have already. I should know this, but it would have been a year or two ago. But yeah, you can do the same thing. It's simpler than it seems, or it's as simple as I just made it seem. But you can always go so many steps further. You can replace samples. You can start synthesizing your own stuff, layering that in. If this was a different sound, I would have took a different approach. But because everything was already there, I really wanted to take advantage of what was there, really enhance it, really bring the character out of the sound, and make that crossover I'm always trying to make of 90s hip hop with modern drum and bass. And I feel like it fits. That's it. If you have any more questions, stick them in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Support me on Patreon or Bandcamp or wherever you feel is necessary or unnecessary. And I'll catch you in the next one. Later.